In our mourning, Lord, we find your comfort. That's not a request, God, I ask because I wonder if it will happen. Lord, it's a thing we step out with faith, knowing that that's what you said will happen. So Lord, grow our faith. Help us to step forward in maturity this morning, in obedience and in love. We ask this all in Christ's name and in the power of the Spirit. Amen. So this last couple weeks, we've been able to start this new series, The Good Life. The Good Life. Now, here's the thing about the good life. A lot of different people define it different ways. In fact, I bet you have changed your definition of what it is over the course of your own life, probably a bunch of different times. This is what I really want in life. That's what I really want. No, actually, I tried that, didn't work. Now I'm going to go this direction. The problem is that even if we have an idea of this is really what's going to make me happy, we get there or we get close and it either continues outside of our reach or we do manage to grasp it. And we find out, no, false promise. Doesn't actually fulfill. And honestly, I don't think it's bad that we want the good life. I mean, we want to be happy. That's what that means, right? And so we chase things that we think will make us happy. That makes a lot of sense. The real problem is that we misunderstand what's going to make us happy. We chase the wrong thing. We put our stock in something that's going to guaranteed to fail. And so as we press into those things and say, this is what's going to make me happy, that's what's going to make me happy, we get corrected along the way, right? You run into somebody and say, well, I tried that, maybe try it this way. No, I've been down that road, don't go down that. What's really important about this series, about studying the Beatitudes out of Matthew 5, which is where we're going to be today if you want to open up, is that Jesus explains to us basically the opposite of everything we hear out there and a good portion of the opposite of what we feel in here. He says, if you want to get to the good life, it's not going to be any of the ways that you're taught, and it's not going to be almost any of the ways that you feel. Those ways are, if you rely on those, they're going to steer you wrong. The good life, it's not going to be had through these traditional means of what the world says success is, what my heart feels like I should chase. Those things usually end really, really badly. What we've been discussing is the good life is where my decisions and my direction display the heart of God. If I can arrive at a place where my decisions are informed by what God wills, what He likes, what He loves, what He desires, and my direction in life is moving in a way that says, no, this will glorify God. This is really my purpose. This is what I'm designed for. This is how God has built me. It's how God's built my family, how God's designed my skill set or my opportunities in life. When those things align and in a way to display what God's heart truly is after, that's where the good life is. That's where the good life. Now, if you remember reading through this passage, or if you've heard it before, you realize that Jesus says blessed a lot. Blessed are these people. Blessed are those people. These people are blessed. Those people. And that word blessed, it really means in a basic sense happy. These are the happy people. These are the ones who are in the good life. These are the ones who have figured it out. These are the ones who are there. Now, it doesn't say giggling, right? These are the people who are just tickled pink all the time. No, it doesn't say that. Happy, blessed. Another way you can really unfold that, the more spiritual sense of that, is favored. These people are favored. Now, our verse this morning that we're focusing on is Matthew 4. It says, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are those who mourn. A really loose translation of that might be, happy are those who are sad. And you go, it doesn't make sense. That doesn't click. Everything I hear out there and everything I feel in here is opposite of what you just said. Blessed are those who are sad. Happy are those who are... Now that doesn't... There's something missing here. When you think about the term happy or blessed or favored, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, how we use the word luck or luck a lot of times. Oh, you're so lucky. What am I saying? Well, the deity of luck, this grand, energy in the universe or whatever it is, that has favored you, right? You get your name drawn out to win the truck, or you did this, or some rich, inheritance comes down the lucky. Oh, you favored, where enviable, it's desired through what you're part of, the position. Oh, good for you, happy for you, great for you. I wish I was where you were. And now you take that and you plug in these words. The mourning, the grieving, the sadness. Oh, happy are you who are grieving. I wish I was where you were. That would be great. You go, no, that doesn't really make sense. So either the Bible's using the words the wrong way, or we've been kind of taught to use the words the wrong way. And I'm going to hedge my bets on this one. I'm going to say it's here. This one's got it right, and we're the ones that need to be corrected. So isn't the opposite of happy mourning? How do these things fit together? We're gonna jump into that a little bit. If you want to get to the good life, it really, really matters what you mourn and where you find comfort. Just think for a second, unfold that in your brain a little bit. What you mourn and where you find comfort. What is it in your life that causes you to mourn, that causes you to grieve, that brings you down? That's it. The things that unfold in your life. You go, oh man, this is really, really hard because it's what? Financial loss, sickness, illness. Things didn't work out the way I got really disappointed. I got really discouraged. I got really depressed. I got really drawn down. I got really just taken to the depths because of what? Well, it matters. It matters what you mourn. Now hold that in one side of your brain. The other side of your brain, where do you go for comfort? You have these feelings. You have these things to deal with. You have these problems. How do you deal with them? What are your steps? Where do you go? Well, it matters. It matters where you look to find comfort, because if I'm honest, I don't actually think most of us find comfort. I don't even think we're chasing comfort. I think we're chasing to be comfortable. We're chasing to get a little bit numb. I don't actually necessarily even want to deal with this problem. I just kind of want to numb it. If I can just stop the pain, that's enough. Because that is this broken definition. Being happy just means no pain, right? That's what we've been taught. If you're really happy, then things are just going how you want. There's just no pain. It's not hard. Everything's easy. I'm going through premarital counseling. I'm already married. It's not for me. I'm helping others. So I'm already married. This is important to know. I'm not getting married again. Premarital counseling with a couple of folks, and we're reading these books, and he talks in there, it's so good for me every time. He talks about how it's not supposed to be easy. We have this idea that love, marriage especially, is supposed to just be easy. Well, it should be easy because we love each other. And if it's not easy, then that just means we whatever. This shouldn't work. Let's give up. That's a common thing out in the world, that because happiness should just be easy. It should just be pain-free. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works at all. No, happiness is deeper than that. True happiness, the good life, is not the easy life. When you have issues, you don't just try to get comfortable. You need to find true comfort. You need to try healing. And sometimes that's painful. Do you understand how things can be good and painful? Right? You ever have a bone set? It's good. It's not enjoyable. So again, you have these things that draw you into these dark moments, these things that cause you to mourn. Where is it that you go to numb? Where is it that you go to just be comfortable? What I want us to chew on today, is this working? Help me out here. I'm dead. Advance slide, please. What we want to jump on today is that God doesn't heal what we refuse to feel. God doesn't heal what we refuse to feel. If you're sitting there and you have a significant problem, a wound, and you've chosen, rather than to deal with it, rather than to find comfort through healing, if you say, no, I'm just going to numb this, I'm just going to build up enough pillows around my broken leg that I don't have to necessarily think about it. I'll just take another pain pill so that pain is not overwhelmed. Now I'm happy. If you refuse to feel these things, they won't get healed. And so when you start to look at what you mourn and then how you deal with it, a lot of times those deep-seated wounds, you just realize, man, I've been working around this for a long time. I've just figured out a way to, I don't know, man, it's fine. I've been figuring out a way to put the pain off. And I'm just going to call that good. I'm going to call that happy. But this is not a long-term solution. Here's what we're put up front in this verse. It puts it right in our face that we're not called to be pain-free. We're actually called to mourn. Like think about this. God's will for your life is not to be comfortable the whole time. God's will for your life is to go through hard things so that you can mourn them, so that he can comfort you, so that he can heal you. That's important because a lot of us might think that, no, if I do what God wants me to do, everything's just going to be easy. And it's the good life, but it isn't the easy life. If we look at our pain honestly, look at what we've done, look at what has been done to us, there's more to life than just Novocaine. If you take these things to him, you can find healing. If we're willing to mourn, if we're willing to grieve over it, if we're willing to say, God looks at this sin a certain way, God looks at this hurt a certain way, what does it do to his heart? It breaks it. It hurts him. That's how my heart should be. I don't just shove it under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. I don't just say, this is just who I am now. I'm just going to deal with it. Now, there are consequences. There are effects. There's things that we carry around. There's scars. I get that. But how much more could we heal if we were to call a spade and say, that's not how God designed it. That's not how he wanted it. That's not what should unfold in my life. When we bring it to him, we can find healing because sin is sin. Sin creates death. Sin creates separation. Sin hurts. Sin brings pain. And so if you're there thinking, I'm just going to work around this, like I'm just going to leave it to it will affect you. It won't be how you want, and you might not even see it coming. But it'll break you. You have to deal with it. And you say, well, how am I supposed to deal with this thing that I don't know? Mourning. If you can look at it and say, what happened there was wrong. And God hates it, and I hate it. And there's a way to move on. There's growth. There's hope in Jesus. There's more to the story. But if you sit there and you have that broken leg, and every time the pain zings up your spine, you just go, all right, better take another pain pill. All right, well, I'll get a few more pillows. I'll just try to not use that leg anymore. It's going to affect the people you love. It's going to affect everything you do. You're hurt like that. So here's a quick heart check. Because sin, the brokenness, it's all around us, right? It's in the world. It's here for sure. What does your heart do when it runs into that? Let's see, do we mourn the way we should? Do we grieve the way that we should, the way God does? When your political opponent, whoever that is, the guy you don't like, when they suffer something, some loss, Maybe some of their family dies. Maybe they're ill. Maybe when they suffer in some way, what does that do to your heart? Is your first thought, feeling, is it do you mourn they're experiencing this brokenness in a world that what God originally designed to be good? What about a school shooting? Is your first thought gun legislature? Or is it about how some parents aren't getting their kids back today? Or the earthquake in Syria or the bombings in Ukraine? Your first thought, was it like, oh, great, more aid we got to send? More bad headlines? Oh, I got my day to do it. Or did you think about the thousands of people? We can't be a bleeding heart on every headline, but if things come into our lives and we're so calloused, you have to understand that you're tolerating sin. If it doesn't affect you, if it doesn't strike something, you go, that's not how it should be. You're allowing that to become something that you go, that's just life. No, it's not. No, that's not how God made it. That's not how he feels about it. He mourns it. And we can mourn it. We can say, that's not it. I don't want that. I can bring that to God, and he'll actually comfort us. He'll actually comfort that. Because the good life is when my decisions, my direction in life, it's reflecting what his heart is. That mourning that takes place, especially within ourselves, it really is repentance. You think about that? There's this evil, there's this terrible thing, and my response to it is to say, I reject this. I don't want any part of it. I hate this is evil, this is wrong. I'm turned away from that. Why? Because of the goodness of God. I see this evil, and then I see the rightness of Jesus. And I go, I don't want any of this, I want this. I'm turning away, and I'm turning toward. Turning away from the evil and the sin, and I'm not celebrating it. I'm not letting it control me. I'm not letting it define me. I'm turning and I'm saying, no, there's hope in Jesus. There's trueness in God. There's truth here. I'm going to rely here. I'm going to live here by faith. It really is a moment of repentance when we mourn sin. And people who do that, who they allow their heart to get broken by the heartbreaking things in the world, when they come to God, they find healing. They find restoration. They find more health, more goodness. They find growth. We sang that song about abiding in Jesus. What do you think abiding in Jesus looks like when things are really, really, really hard? It looks like mourning. It looks like grieving. It looks like saying, God, I can't do this. I need to rely on Jesus. I need to abide in him. His strength will be mine. We believe as a disciple, to grow as a disciple means we're growing as Jesus abiders. That's what we believe here at Westmark. To be a Jesus abider, to continue growing that means when I run into this evil and it breaks my heart in your life or in my life or in the global landscape, I go, I don't want any part of that. I turn to God. I say, is there anything you can do with this? Because this is awful. And he has good news. He has good the people who can't save, that he's working, he's redeeming. Like more uncomfortable. In fact, it's easier to say I would rather be comfortable than to say I would rather be comforted. Right? No, I'm in a bad place right now. This is hard. And so my response actually most times, if I'm honest with you, is saying, I just want to be comfortable right now. I just want the pain to stop. I just want that thought to go away. I just want this situation to be different. I just want to be comfortable. But God doesn't promise those who mourn will be comfortable. He says they'll be comforted. He can step into the situation. When we come to him in that faith, he steps in and he says, I can fix this. I can help you get through this. And I wonder if God doesn't allow us to go through some things to widen our perspective. I think sometimes he causes us to feel things and to go through things to show us what he feels like. There's this weird situation that happened I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, I followed this news story about this horribly, just tragic, awful thing. It claimed the lives of three little youngsters, and just heartbreaking, every bit of it. Senseless violence, right? And I read that story, and I wept. And you're like, no, that's ridiculous. There's people who die every day. People, you don't know these people. You don't know them. And I agree with you. You're right. But it doesn't mean they didn't matter. Right? So I think that the Lord did that to teach me something about how he feels about all the people who die all the time. And you can chalk it up and say, no, that's just white noise. It happens. It's going to keep happening, and you're right. But it doesn't mean it's not awful. Doesn't mean those things shouldn't change us, to cause us to mourn and grieve and say, God, there has to be a better answer. There has to be more. Because when you grieve those things, he comforts you, and he says there is. I want to show you that. I want to show you that there's more. And what we actually find, if you look back in our own history, is instead of leaning into that comfort, which is hard and painful to arrive at, we lean into being comfortable, right? We lean into things that numb, into things that just kind of make the pain for a minute go away. And so that might have been, think about what you have done. Think about some of the things you've used. Maybe you've used substances. That's an easy one, right? That'll numb some things. Maybe that maybe you used alcohol. I don't have to get blackout drunk. No, but if you have to have a beer in your hand in order to deal with these emotions, in order to calm down, it's dependency. It's a numbing effect. Maybe you've used sexual pleasure. It's an escape. It's a thing I can lean into, and now I just feel different. That's what a lot of times the draw of drugs is, that it numbs the pain. And I can escape into this, and now I don't feel it. Maybe you found it easier to make yourself comfortable with the affirmations of others. Right? Maybe you've used your body to get that affirmation. Maybe you've used unhealthy relationships to get that affirmation. Maybe you say, well, I got to post another picture. I got to get them to, that'll prove that I'm good enough. That'll affirm me. So this pain, I can just say, no, it's not real, because look at what I'm feeling right now. Now I don't have to. Now I don't have to deal with this. I'll just work longer hours, and that means they'll respect me more. I'll just expand, I'll scale up. That way it'll give me more of a reputation. I'll be more intuitive. They'll be impressed. Maybe you're one of the millions and millions and millions of people who get yourself comfortable with distractions. Distractions. The biggest one is busyness. It really doesn't matter what it is, it's just busyness. Just more, just doing something, doing more busy, doing more events, more sports, more vacations, more clubs, more acres, more hours, more. Because if I'm busy, I don't have to sit. If I'm busy, I don't have to think about it. And now my busyness isn't actually getting somewhere, it's running away from something. Because if I slowed down enough, I would actually have to sit and look at myself in the mirror. If I slowed down enough, I'd actually have to sit and look at my spouse in the eye. And then we would have to deal with the problem. We'd have to deal with the issues. But if we're busy enough, we can kind of just numb that. We can just move along and just don't have to think about it. You ever talk to super busy people? I'm sure you haven't. They're always stressed, right? And it's interesting because it's always the same conversation. Oh, I'm stressed. I did it to myself. I know we shouldn't have. But think about that. It's like you're just choosing that. I would rather be stressed than be blessed. Because in order to get to the blessed part, it's hard and it's painful. Maybe you do it through lightheartedness, just more jokes and more movies and more pastimes and more mindless TV and more concerts and more social gatherings and more jokes and just on, and it distracts. It moves you along. You can avoid feeling uncomfortable, avoid feeling the grieving. Or maybe you go the opposite. Maybe you go to the darkness, right? And you numb by the pity party, by the attention gathering, by the gossip. So everybody makes sure that you make sure everybody knows this is my opinion and it's right. And look, I go on and on and on and on, right? We all have mechanisms to numb, mechanisms to get us comfortable instead of, this is a hard thing and I know it's hard and it's going to be painful, but I'm going to do it. Nah, never mind. I'm just going to numb. The truth is, if we want to be a growing disciple, we have to be uncomfortable with our sin so that we can be comforted by God. You have to be uncomfortable with the sin that's been done to you so that you can then be comforted by God. You have to process this. You have to work through this with the Lord. He wants to heal you, but he's not going to heal what you refuse to feel. He's not going to step into this with, he's there waiting, but you have to say yes. You think about the people, the most spiritually healthy, growing, emotionally healthy people you know, they've felt the painful things so that God could heal the painful things. It's true. We've seen it. You know, I can't stand splinters. You know what a splinter is? It's a tree's revenge. That's what that is. It's from the grave. It's like, I'll get you one day, you know? I can't stand them. I mostly can't stand them when people leave them. You know what I'm talking about? My kids, they do this. And that's so we're at the point now where they don't come tell me anymore. Because they know Dad's just going to get his hacksaw out and get this thing out of here. It sits there and it stays there. And it is, right, it's more painful right now to pull it out than it is to leave it, isn't it? Sometimes. Especially if it's in real deep. You got to dig after it, you know. I can't stand them staying in there. But kids, they do. Yeah, it's more painful to go through this. It's scary a lot of times. That's the bigger deal, is that it's not as much painful as it is, well, you're going to come after me with those tweezers, and you know, then they do these like juke moves and you got to pin them down. It's scary. It's scary to deal with it. And so what do we do? Well, I'll just leave it in there, and now I'm just going to work around it. Right? I'll start picking things up kind of weird. That way I don't have to it. Start high-fiving people backwards like a weirdo. You try to organize your life. Now, well, it hurts, and so I'm just going to do different. It affects you. It affects how you live. And actually, one of the big problems with that is you can go a long time like that. You can go your whole life probably, or at least close, not dealing with this issue because you've learned how to work around it. But you know what happens is you're sitting there and you have that splinter, and then someone you love reaches out to hold your hand and they hit that wound that you might have even not even been aware it was there anymore. And so you react. And you either pull away or you lash out at them, and sometimes both. And so because you have this issue that you haven't dealt with, that you've just learned to work around, the people who love you most get hurt the most. Does that sound familiar? You need to mourn that. You can't just pretend it's not there. It hurts. It's wrong. It's not how it should be. It doesn't mean it's your fault. It doesn't mean that there has to be this major punishment. It doesn't mean shame. What it means is this is a problem. And there might be some work there. There might be some surgical digging into there that might not be fun. But it's what you need. And you won't progress as long as you leave it. So it's worth it. It's worth it to be comforted, real comfort, real healing. There's more to life. There's more joy. There's more peace. There's more presence of God, closeness. And so you maybe the first step in this for you is to hear these words, to let this sink down, sort of start disinfecting that wound, is that what was done to you is not your fault. What was done to you does not define you. What you've done in your past doesn't have to be your identity. There's freedom in this healing. There's freedom in that comfort. So instead of accepting that shame, instead of making that an identity, instead of accepting that hurt and saying, no, this is just who I am, I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to live this way. I'm just going to try to cordon off that part of my life, make sure nobody touches my hand. I'm just going to live this way. Instead of doing that, you mourn it, you grieve it, you call it what it is. That's wrong. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want that to be a part of me. I'm looking for healing. And you make those steps forward with God. Listen to what God says in Isaiah 49. Can a woman forget her baby who nurses at her breast? Can she withhold compassion from the child she has born? Even if mothers were to forget, I could never you. See, we don't want to pull the splinter out because it's scary, because it's going to hurt. But when you realize the love that the Father has on the other end of this, well, you don't know what I've done. You don't know you don't know how awful this is. You don't know. I don't, but He already does. He already does. And to know that for His people, He loves them, even if mothers were to forget, I could never forget you. Some of us might have trouble with that because you say, my mom did forget. She didn't care. She left. My dad did leave. He didn't care. The people that I needed the most, I trusted the most, they hurt me the most. Even if they did, He could never forget you. He could never forget His child in their hurt. And so what that does is that frees us. It means I can look at this pain, I can bring it to Him, and I can say, I hate this. I hate that this is in your world, and I want to leave it with you. I want you to heal this. I'm tired of trying to get comfortable in the midst of, I want to be made new. Do you know how you can know that this is true? That He could never forget you. Is the second part. The next beginning of this verse, He says, look, I've inscribed your name on my palms. When Jesus came and He died on the cross, He gave immense personal sacrifice. The pain that He went through was to pull our pain away from us. By His wounds we are healed, Isaiah writes later, right? When He was nailed to the cross, He did that on purpose. He did that with you in mind. It was love. You say, God, I don't trust you to open up, to talk about that, to go there. I've avoided it. I don't want to. He can say, look at my palms. I've inscribed your name here. Look what I've done for you. You don't think I love you? You don't think I care for you? He's proven it. He's proven it again and again. And when He came back from the grave, it's this new life that He's saying, I want to unfold for you. I want to put this into your heart. If you grabbed a bulletin, there's a piece of paper, and it looks like this. It's got 4 spots on it, and it's a picture of a splinter, because what I want you to do is I want you to think through some of the things. Maybe you can do this right now. Maybe you want to fill this out during this last song we sing. Maybe you're at a place you say, no, I want to get alone. I want to think about it. I want to talk with my spouse. I want to work through this. He just got a splinter from the pews. It's okay. What you're going to do is on that pain line, number 1, I want you to list the specific splinter. What is that pain? And you say, I don't know what it is. Okay, pray about it. Think about it. Chances are it's what's been in your head this whole time, though. It's what the Lord's been saying. This is a problem we need to work on. This is an area that if you want greater intimacy with me, if you want greater growth, this is something that you need to deal with. Line number 2 is the numb. I want you to write what you usually do to numb that pain. What's an unhealthy thing that you lean into to try to get you away from this? I've already filled in number 3 for you. It's to ask God to help you mourn. There might be one time, it might take you a while for Him to work in your heart, to transform, to take off that callus. And the last one is to heal. I just write your best idea. It's not a commitment. It's just a best idea. What's the Lord doing right now? I feel like a lot of times he allows an idea to be in there that you can step on in faith. Don't be afraid of a bad idea. That might be a counselor. That might be a therapist. That might be talking to me. That might be starting a journey that way. Maybe not. Maybe because of your past, maybe you need to dig into his word and be reminded of some truths to answer your doubts. Maybe you need to sit down with a more mature Christian and say, how did you deal with this? I'm struggling with something. Maybe you need to open up a long-term discipling relationship and say, hey, can we meet like twice a month? I just want to share what I'm going through and maybe get some direction. Maybe it's committing to saying, I'm going to start my day 10 minutes every day praying about this specific thing, asking God to help me mourn it, help me grieve, to remind me that I'm known and I'm loved and that there's healing. Asking God to make my heart look like his. There's a million ideas here, and if you need help thinking of one, we can talk. I'm not sure what your next step is, but I just need you to remember that God doesn't heal what we refuse to feel. But the promise in this verse is that those who mourn will be comforted. Meaning when we bring those things to him, he will heal them. It might not be exactly how you want. It might not be on your timeline, but that's the promise, is that God brings new life. It's what he does. It's what he does. Happy Easter, right? New life. Pray with me. Lord, I want to thank you for this morning. God, I want to ask for a special grace to fall on us, Lord, that we, some of us are opening up in our minds right now and in our hearts right now some boxes that we boxed up a long time ago. Some things that we've been working around for many, many, many years. And Lord, I know you don't want that sin in our hearts. I know you don't want that brokenness by our fault or fault of another, Lord, that we've been bruised and battered in this world. And Lord, you have healing for us. You have movement forward. You have a greater call for us. All because you love us. So Lord, I ask just grace that we understand that this scariness of taking out this splinter, Lord, that you would soften it with a reminder of how deep you love us. How grateful we can be because you are a loving God who saw us in our brokenness, who saw us full of splinters and shattered, and you sent your son not because we deserved it, but because you love us. Lord, help us to grow. Lord, give us bravery in a place where we felt nothing but fear for a long time. Father, help us to understand the good life and what you have for us. I pray this for my church family. In the name of the Son.